This morning, as first responders were still frantically searching for the bodies in the icy waters of the Potomac, a sitting congressman rushed to television to assign blame.
I think you have to look at this with eyes wide open, see what happened. Human error, was it some sort of equipment failure? Did DEI play a role in this type of thing?
Now, for the next few hours, he received a mountain of backlash, but believe it or not, that remark was minor compared to what the President of the United States said just hours later when he made DEI the centerpiece of his message.
I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration, but they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent.
The blame spectacle could be to take attention away from some of the very serious questions his administration is now facing, even if it's just 10 days into his administration. First, why did Trump wait to name an acting FAA administrator until now? The last one resigned before Trump took office after Elon Musk said he should, because the two clashed over SpaceX oversight. And second, why did Trump fire the heads of the Transportation Security Administration and the Coast Guard last week without a plan in place to replace them? He also fired members of the Aviation Security Advisory Committee. That's a group that's been around since the 1980s. And third, air traffic controllers are allowed to resign and accept that buyout that Trump is offering to millions of federal workers, again, without a plan to replace them. Joining us at the table is Kara Swisher, Anna Navarro, and aviation analyst Justin Green. Anna, this press conference was, as many things with Trump, shocking but not surprising. It's in a way a predictable response, but I guess the surprising part was how quickly it came. I mean, the bodies are still in the water. The families are still grieving. We don't know what caused this. I mean, I think we could hazard to guess it's probably not DEI.
Listen, I think there were some people after this election that thought, for some reason, I'm not sure why, but I know people who thought that Trump had changed and that for some reason this would be different and that we didn't know what we were going to be facing. And this brought back to me what Maya Angelou told us, right? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And today was a wake-up call for all those people that thought Trump was somehow going to change, that he is the same exact person that he was. This press conference struck me for just how callous it was. How callous is it with the families and loved ones of those victims still in the water, to be without a shred of evidence, throwing out theories irresponsibly, like if it was spaghetti to a wall. And also the irresponsibility of being the commander-in-chief and using the presidential bully pulpit to spread these conspiracy theories without evidence. And just as disgusting as the idea that he's commander-in-chief and he's blaming the helicopter pilots and that he's got a DOD secretary. You see, this is something he couldn't have done if Jim Mattis was Secretary of Defense. If Jim Mattis would have gone on that podium and would have corrected him and would have pushed back. But now he's got these complicit secretaries in that cabinet that just clap and smile and nod along with every insane thing that comes out of his mouth.
He assigned blame to the helicopter pilots,
Mm-hmm.
then also at the same time said it was the fault of DEI. Mm-hmm. The helicopter pilots are dead. Mm-hmm. Their families are grieving. That's the other part of this that I think was just astonishing.
Yeah. It was. You know, a lot of it looks like he had research done by one of the hallucinogenic AI bots or something like that, because it just wasn't accurate. And I think the problem is right now there's so much information available everywhere that people pull from stuff that isn't accurate. And what has to happen is a normal thing, an investigation where all the facts come out. And that should be the only thing we should focus in on. And unfortunately, he has a bully pulpit, so he can do this. But to me, you just need to know exactly what happened. We have black boxes. We have actual evidence that will show this. And using this is probably a distractionary thing, disgusting as it may be. You know, he's got these hearings going on for his cabinet picks. It takes away attention. And I think one of the things, again, is this same flooding the zone with all kinds of information.
It also reinforces his policy objective of getting rid of all DEI.
Certainly, but he's doing it anyway.
Remember when the California fires happened? What was the first thing the right wing said?
Yeah.
Blaming the fires on DEI. This is going to be a repetitive theme.
It's incredibly convenient
and, if there's like
lazy as well.
Trans fats are going to be blamed on DEI, and trans people are going to be blamed on trans fats. Like, you can see it going on and on and on. And so it's a narrative that they'll use every time there's something that happens.
Justin, how does this hit the families, you think? Just all of this.
Well, you know, as you know, I'm a lawyer representing families, and this is a very, very difficult time for them. And it's going to go on for a very long time because the answers that they want, like what happened to their loved ones, it's going to take months and months before they get those answers. So, you know, I can't speak to how this affects them. I do, you know, one of the things that I thought was kind of positive was the Secretary of Transportation, Duffy, saying, look, we're taking responsibility for this, which is unusual. You know, from a lawyer's perspective, Trump blaming the military, who he represents, and ultimately is almost an admission that the government's at fault, is unusual. Yeah. But I think it's kind of refreshing to see Duffy saying, look, we're going to make sure the mistakes that happen don't happen again. Now the question is whether they're going to live up to those words.
If they are, just out of curiosity, you know, Trump is, as we've been discussing, blaming DEI just writ large. He's saying this is his hunch. Common sense tells him that that's the responsibility. He's specifically blaming this screen grab with this on the FAA website, talking about how they had an initiative to hire people with disabilities. And then he highlights that by suggesting that they were recruiting people who couldn't see and who, you know, had intellectual disabilities. What he's referring to there is actually just a government definition of disabilities that includes a lot of different things. But I mean, I wonder, when he says that, does that try to deflect away from a certain kind of responsibility? Does that put more liability perhaps on individuals who are working in these roles at the FAA in air traffic control?
No, I mean, as a plaintiff's lawyer, if that's what the government did and these people made mistakes, that's great for the families because, you know, the government's going to ultimately be responsible for it. But as an aviation, you know, before I was a lawyer, I was a pilot and I was an aviation safety officer. Went through training school, and ultimately you're looking at the facts. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, but Dragnet back in the day, they had just the facts, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Right now, the facts are, there's no facts suggesting that DEI had anything to do with this accident. So, you know, we're 24 hours into this. Let's let the facts come out and let's follow the facts.
Yeah.
The other part is these things have been in place for a long time because of the real problem, which is we don't have enough air traffic controllers, and it's because of COVID, all kinds of reasons. It's incredibly stringent training, and this also happened during the Trump administration. They were trying to find programs.
Yeah, I mean, this was on the website when he was president.
Correct, but don't let the facts get in the way of a bad story.
Yeah.
This goes back to Reagan firing all the
yeah, absolutely, it goes back.
When you say, you know, very stringent training and requirements to be an air traffic controller or to be a pilot, and they are the same requirements and training, whether it's a black pilot or a Latino pilot or a white pilot or a female pilot or a white man pilot. The requirements and training do not change. Exactly. And people need to understand that. And I just think to myself, how demoralizing it's got to be for air traffic controllers, how demoralizing it's got to be for anybody working in that space to hear the President of the United States
to have him
say these
suggest, I mean, look, if you are a woman, if you're a black person, if you're a Hispanic person, working in those roles, basically the president just said you're suspect.
Right.
And that you're, just by definition of who you are, likely to not be doing your job well. That's incredible that that is being said from the White
And
House.
the other thing, Abby, that drove me crazy, I'm sorry, is in a press conference later in the day, or when he was answering questions, he was asked if he would go to the site. And very flippantly, he said, what does that mean? It's water. You want me to go swimming there? This is basically outside his door is where this happened. It wouldn't take much effort for him to show up and lay a wreath on behalf of a nation in grief and shock right now. One of the roles of the President of the United States is consoler in chief, to console us in our moments of grief. And he is, frankly, because of his lack of human empathy, absolutely incapable of showing.
But see, here's the thing. We are talking about that. This is we're not talking about the facts. We're not talking about what happened here. We're not talking about the lack of air traffic controllers. And our country is actually quite safe from air safety point of view. It's been, I mean, more people obviously die in car accidents. Everybody knows that. It's been a very safe period of time.
Tell us about Elon Musk's role in the ousting of the FAA administrator. This happened actually even before Trump was sworn in.
Yes, he's been wrangling with him.
And it has to do with, shocker, his private business.
Yes, with Tesla. Tesla's had a series of problems with its cars, and there's been a series of investigations, lawsuits, et cetera, et cetera. And so he doesn't like any strictures. He doesn't like any regulations. And he blamed the government during COVID about his factory. He's always doing that and trying to get the government off his back, even though it's helped him quite a bit. And so he was wrangling with people who were worried about some debris with his rockets or with the cars or whatever. And so that was that fight over stuff he was doing.
You mean like the rocket that just exploded over Turks and Caicos and showered debris all over?
He's been wrangling with them, and so he wants to get rid of people he perceives in his way. And, he's doing the same thing with offering these packages, which seem nuts.
The president is obviously entitled to make personnel changes, but
certainly
roles like this, there should be replacements in place. And I think this is an incredibly telling moment for why that is so important. Everyone, thank you all for joining us.